Gravity Falls is home to some of the most vibrant characters in cartoon history. A world shrouded in mystery, where curiosity is the driving force for discovery. And there's one man in Oregon who's far more curious than anyone else: Stanford Pines, the brilliant brain that unlocked the secrets to Gravity Falls. His work, his research, is the foundation on which the entire show is built on. But how did it all start for Ford? What happened in the Nightmare Realm? And how did his rivalry with Bill Cipher end? Well, today we're going to answer all that and more as we weave our way through Ford Pines' entire story. But let me warn you, things might get a bit weird. Ford was born back in the 1950s, just 15 minutes before his twin brother Stanley. Their parents, Karen and Filbrick Pines, brought the pair up in the quaint little town of Glass Shard Beach. However, due to a rare birth defect, Ford was born with an extra finger on both hands, alongside an abnormally high IQ. And so, it wasn't long before science fiction, and the supernatural all became obsessions for him. With his brother by his side, Ford would always go in search of adventure, but adventure soon turned into a nightmare when the boys were repeatedly bullied by a group of kids headed by the biggest bully of them all, Krampelter. The bullies would target their differences, especially Ford's fingers, and the fact that they only had the two of them as friends.
But I am a freak. I just wonder if there's anywhere in the world where weirdos like me fit in.
To combat this, their dad enrolled them into boxing classes to try to teach them some defense, in case things got really heated with the bullies. As time passed, Ford's scientific achievements started racking up. Tests passed with flying colors, experiments, research findings, tons of work for a young man. But he still found time to work with his brother on their passion project, the Stan-O-War, an old wrecked boat that the pair had painstakingly put back together over the years, in hopes that they could fulfill their joint dream of becoming national treasure hunters. But with a brain like Ford's, it wouldn't be long before he caught the attention of the most prestigious colleges in the country, West Coast Institute of Technology. This was thanks to one of Ford's creations, the perpetual motion machine. Stan soon learned of his brother's scholarship and took it to heart, thinking that it would wedge the pair apart and finally put out the embers of what was a once burning, passionate dream. Stan took out his frustration on his brother's creation, accidentally breaking the machine, causing West Coast Tech to ultimately deny his brainiac brother.
I'd say we wasted a car trip.
What?
What's worse, Stan left evidence that proved he was on the scene when the machine went bust. Ford can barely contain his fury, as he tells his brother that he knows he tried to sabotage him. But eavesdropping on the conversation is their dad, Filbrick, who is even angrier than Ford. He immediately disowns Stan and kicks him out of the family home.
Stanford? Don't leave me hanging. High six?
Time passes. The duo haven't seen each other for some time, and Ford has enrolled himself in a less than prestigious school, Backup S'more University. Here, Ford makes his first true friend, who isn't his brother, Fiddleford McGucket, a young but brilliant mechanic with a sharp scientific mind. Wait a minute, is that? I know what you're thinking. The same as me. What happened to that guy? Well, you'll find out.
Only one way to find out!
Even though the school wasn't matching Ford's potential, that didn't stop him from making huge scientific strides, even managing to get into a doctoral program 3 years early. As well as that, the man became nationally renowned, and even scooped up a large cash prize for his research. In his senior years, Ford decided to major in the anomalies of nature, inspired by the anomaly of his extra fingers. Firmly down the research rabbit hole, Ford found that the most concentrated point of strange phenomena, supernatural sightings, and all-around madness was located in Gravity Falls, Oregon. This is where Ford decides to call home.
There were anomalies everywhere, and the more I looked, the more I saw.
Using his prize money to venture into the unknown, Ford built his own research lab in the town to start his mystery-solving mission. It's here where he began keeping journals, creating the familiar six-fingered emblem and jotting down any and all findings from his thorough research. His expedition grew and grew to the point he built an entire bunker where he'd house his more dangerous experiments. You know, like the shapeshifter. By 1981, Ford had already begun writing his third journal and had a vast encyclopedic knowledge of the bizarre world in which he walked. But a roadblock in research was inevitable, and it all centered around one word: why? Why was Gravity Falls so strange? Research and passion soon turned to obsession, as Ford would dig for any scrap of evidence which could get him over this hurdle. This led him to the caves of the Gravity Falls, where bygone natives had painted stories about the oddities of Oregon. The paintings told a story about an all-knowing being called Bill Cipher, alongside the Cipher Wheel, a way to imprison the dream demon should he ever get out. Ford foolishly dismissed these paintings as primitive superstitions and read a forbidden incantation, an incantation which summoned Bill Cipher directly into Ford's mind.
Whoa, don't have a heart attack, you're not 92 yet.
Now inside, Bill tells Ford that he is a muse, whose job is to help one genius every century by revealing secrets and helping to piece mind-bending questions together. For some time, Bill wandered around Ford's mindscape, and the two formed a partnership together. Bill gave Ford his answers, explaining that he is the reasoning for Gravity Falls' anomalies, being so bizarrely unique due to a dimensional rift where another dimension's weirdness leaks through. With this incredible insight, Ford set out to create an interdimensional gateway, recruiting his friend Fiddleford to help him complete the machine. All the while, Ford and Bill's partnership begins to border on obsession, as he fills his home with the triangular-shaped trinkets, rugs, and statues, even going as far as remodeling his home in the shape of a triangle. Fiddleford notices the changes in his friend, and worries that something serious may be wrong, as Ford hadn't really given him much information on why they were building the gate, and more importantly, who this mysterious collaborator feeding Ford the ideas in the first place was. But that aside, the two completed the gate and were due to give it its first test run on January 18, 1982. But things didn't quite go to plan, as a test dummy used in the trial got sucked into the gateway, which wouldn't be too bad if Fiddleford wouldn't have accidentally been sucked up as well. Luckily, Ford was quick to act, but not before Fiddleford made his way through the portal, causing him to mutter gibberish when finally back onto the side of safety. Although those incoherent words soon made sense as Fiddleford warns Ford of a prophecy of a beast with one eye. This snapped Ford back into reality, where he not only realized the dangers of his creation, but also started to grow suspicious of Bill. To combat his mental menace, Ford installed a metal plate into his head to ensure that Bill couldn't stray too far in his mind or gain sudden control of him, all while shutting down the operation surrounding the interdimensional gate. To further protect himself, however, Ford created Project Mentem, a machine capable of bioelectrically encrypting his thoughts to act as a final line of defense against the triangular demon. With all these safety measures in mind, literally, Ford still couldn't handle the paranoia of Bill watching him through his own eyes, so he plowed on with his research work, but made sure to use invisible ink when writing. Regardless, his sanity continued to decline, and in one last attempt to remove any danger of Bill or his work, Ford decided to abandon his research and to hide his journals so that no one could ever reopen the interdimensional gateway again. Once his journals were hidden, Ford then began working on renovating his lab into a shack, capable of withstanding a world where Cipher managed to escape his mind. Basically, apocalypse-proof. With the last gasps of his sanity, Ford managed to write and send a postcard SOS to his brother Stan, who, by the way, he hasn't seen since their split over his perpetual motion machine. Knowing his brother wouldn't ask for his help unless something was seriously wrong, Stan sparked into action and headed to Gravity Falls in search of his brother. When he finally tracks Ford down, Stan sees that his brother's condition is far worse than he'd expected. Ford treats Stan like he did all those years ago, like no time has passed, as if nothing happened between them. Instead of trying to fix their broken relationship, Ford tries to force Stan to be a pawn in his insane game to cipher-proof the world. We know Stan hasn't got the most patience in the world, and being met with his stonewalling brother led to yet another fight between the two. The brawl spilled out into Ford's lab and accidentally activated the interdimensional gateway once more, where Ford gets sucked in through the portal and becomes trapped on the other side.
I just got him back! I can't lose him again! Come on!
Before his fall, though, Ford threw the first of his journals at his brother. But without the other two journals, Stan lacked the knowledge needed to bring his brother back. For the next 30 years in his absence, Stan transformed the research center into the mystery shack we all know and love, making it not only a hotspot for the weird and wonderful, but for tourists too. On the other side of the portal, however, Ford could be anywhere, at any time, maybe even a place where doesn't exist. So now, with Ford's backstory out of the way, this brings us up to the start of the show. Throughout the first season, the author was frequently brought up by users of the journals, but there was barely a clue in sight as to who said the author could be. That said, Ford himself had a cameo in the episode The Time Traveler's Pig, where Dipper and Mabel time traveled to a point in front of the Mystery Shack many years ago, when Ford was still in the middle of research. The identity of the author was drip-fed from there on out to the audience, with one piece of evidence being the infamous laptop from the episode Scarioki, plastered with a label which says Property of F. Or like in The Society of the Blind Eye, where it's revealed that the author's assistant was Old Man McGucket. But not until the 11th episode of Season 2, titled Not What He Seems, do we finally see the return of Ford. Dipper, just like his granduncle Ford, became obsessed with the supernatural. And thanks to him and his sister Mabel, Stan finally had all 3 of Ford's journals and could reopen the portal to bring his brother back. After half a season of portal repairs, Stan had successfully opened a rift to bring his brother home. And he wasn't happy. Ford returned with fury, scalding Stan for reactivating the portal and putting their world at risk to any unneeded evil that could leak through. It seems Stan got lucky this time. He tells his brother that while he's glad to be back, the shack isn't some gimmick. It's a research center, and he gives Stan until the end of the summer to move out.
Did you hear what they said? I think Uncle Ford said they're gonna buy us puppies made of ice cream.
In the episode Dungeons, Dungeons, and More Dungeons, a curious Dipper throws non-stop questions at Ford, but his granduncle swats them away, telling Dipper not to interfere with his work.
On the dark, weird road I travel, I'm afraid you cannot follow. Well, call me for dinner.
Well, that lasts all of 5 seconds before Dipper falls into the basement. Expecting to be told off, Dipper is met by Ford, who sees he is a 38-sided dice and becomes excited. He tells Dipper that he loves playing Dungeons, Dungeons, and More Dungeons, and the two start bonding by playing a game that soon takes over the whole house. Stan then accidentally rolls the infinity-sided die, which prompts the release of Probabilitor the Annoying. No, really, that is his real name. And he's voiced by Weird Al Yankovic, of course.
That's why I'm going to eat your brains to gain your intelligence. It's what I do.
It's his thing.
He captures Ford and Dipper and transforms them into playing pieces. But with the help of Stan and Mabel, they defeat this weird wizard. Ford locks the die away and begins to open up to Dipper after their bonding time together. He even shows Dipper what he's been working on, the destruction of the interdimensional gateway. But he tells Dipper that there's an overflow of rift energy, so to keep everything safe, Ford captured the energy into a small snow globe-like container. In the episode The Last Mabelcorn, the isosceles of insanity, Bill Cipher, returns in one of Ford's dreams. He tells Ford that he's been preparing all this time for the big day, and that Ford can't keep the interdimensional rift safe forever, as he knows he's captured it. Bill simulates just exactly what he's got planned for the third dimension when he rips open a red triangular portal in the sky and sets fire to Ford's mindscape before leaving through the portal. Ford wakes and tells the family of the potential dangers of Bill, instructing Mabel to go on a quest to find unicorn hair, an important ingredient in Bill-proofing the Mystery Shack. Meanwhile, Ford and Dipper use the Mentem machine to safeguard themselves. But Dipper uses the machine on a sleeping Ford to take a look through his memories and finds that his great uncle used to be friends with Bill. Ford wakes and tells Dipper he shouldn't have gone peeking. But Dipper fears Ford isn't who he says he is, and that it's Bill who's in the driving seat. Dipper grabs the rift and refuses to hand it over, escalating to the point that Dipper fires his gun at Ford. But the laser bullet ricochets off Ford's glasses and destroys the encryption machine. Ford tells Dipper that it's really him, and instantly forgives him for acting how he did, explaining his past with Bill Cipher. Mabel then returns unicorn hair, and the family form a protective field around the Mystery Shack.
But today I learned that morality is relative.
Money!
And once done, Ford pulls Dipper aside and offers him the chance to become his apprentice. In Dipper and Mabel vs. the Future, Ford tells Dipper that the rift's container is slowly cracking and fears the formation of a world-ending phenomenon called a Weirdmageddon. To try and patch up the container, Ford takes Dipper to a hidden wrecked UFO, trying to get some extraterrestrial strength adhesive. While in search, Ford tells Dipper more about the potential of him becoming his apprentice, but Dipper is a bit dubious, telling Ford of all the work he has in school, which of course sparks Ford into going into detail about his 12 PhDs, telling Dipper doesn't need to worry, he's in very capable hands. He tells his grandnephew that he sees something special in him, and that he could become great if he followed in his footsteps. But their conversation quickly comes to an end when Ford's magnetic gun reveals the adhesive. This commotion activated the UFO's defense droids, who capture Ford and nearly ship him off to an unknown location. But thanks to Dipper, Ford manages to stay put in Gravity Falls. After all the craziness, Ford thanks his grandnephew, and Dipper accepts the apprentice offer. He goes to tell Mabel all about his day and then heads back to Ford, but realizes he's taken Mabel's bag by accident and she now has the rift.
This is a huge opportunity for me.
Well, it's a horrible opportunity for me.
Mabel, being bummed that her twin is likely going to leave her for an apprenticeship, is alone in the woods with the rift, and is soon approached by Blendin Blandin, a time-traveling friend of hers and Dipper. He senses her wish for never wanting summer to end, and convinces her to hand over the interdimensional rift, stating that the rift can create a time-stopping bubble to grant her wish. But as soon as Mabel hands over the rift, Bill reveals himself to be possessing Blandin and smashes the rift underfoot. This allows Bill to enter the third dimension, ripping open portals, allowing different dimensions to bleed into one, creating what Ford feared most: Weirdmageddon. In the first part of the Weirdmageddon trilogy, Ford and Dipper find themselves witnessing more of the supernatural mayhem at the hands of Cypher. Creatures of all kinds flee the area, desperate to escape the impending doom. A panicked Ford tells Dipper that for every second the rift remains open, Bill grows stronger. Determined to put an end to Bill's reign, they embark on a mission to defeat him once and for all. Ford takes Dipper to the town's clock tower and prepares his quantum destabilizer to shoot Bill. However, Ford gets distracted when a weirdness wave hits the bell, causing him to miss his shot. Angered, Bill confronts Ford and informs his fellow beings about Ford building the portal. The Triangle of Terror offers Ford to be a member of Bill's gang, but Ford quickly declines, so Bill transforms Ford into a golden back scratcher? Now that's evil. Ford remains frozen for the second part in the trilogy, but he makes a triumphant return into the third and final part. He's brought out of his petrified state by Bill to find himself chained in a strange room. Bill makes an entrance, in typical villain style, playing the piano before making a drink appear in Ford's hand, who then sits down on the couch he's chained to. Bill explains that for some reason, despite his might, he can't escape the confines of Gravity Falls, to which Ford tells him that it's property of the town's weirdness magnetism, which he studied years ago. Bill asks if he learned how to deactivate it, to which Ford admits knowing the simple formula capable of collapsing the barrier before spitefully yelling that he's never gonna tell Bill. At first, Bill tries persuasion, revealing his intentions of liberating the third dimension and offering to make Ford an all-powerful being if he helps.
I'll remake a fun world, a better world. A party that never ends with a host that never dies!
Ford denies this immediately, of course. Bill then declares he would invade Ford's mind to get the code, but Ford calls him out on this claim, reminding him of the rules of the mindscape, that despite Bill's abilities with dreams, he couldn't enter Ford's mind without Ford shaking on a deal and letting him in. But Bill can wait, and he tells Ford that everyone has a button to press, and sooner or later, he'll push Ford's. Meanwhile, Dipper, Mabel, Stan, and the others were planning to rescue him, in the hopes that his knowledge of how to defeat Bill could get rid of him once and for all. They convert the shack into a Bill-proof Shackatron and head for Bill's pyramid. Chained and battered, Ford faced a 500-watt shock from Bill's eyeball, yet still, he clung to his defiance against revealing the equation. Just as Bill prepared for another round of torment, the kids stormed into the pyramid, disrupting the evil demon. Bill dispatched his henchmen for battle, while he and Ford observed from the shadows. As the henchmaniacs were defeated, Bill, frustrated, but sensing an opportunity, saw the depth of Ford's connection with Dipper and Mabel. Ford's pride in his great-nephew and great-niece was obvious. They're Ford's Achilles heel. So Cypher leaps at the chance and threatens to torment the kids. He then transforms a distraught Ford back into the gold statue and flies to the Shackatron to attack. The refugees piloting the machine use the dinosaur attachment to rip out Bill's eye to distract him so they can rescue Ford. A team land in the pyramid and plan on first unfreezing everyone in Bill's human throne. Gideon, gleeful, now trapped in a cage as punishment for letting Dipper in Mabel's bubble, tells the team that Mayor Tyler is the weight-bearing statue in the throne, and should he be dislodged, everyone will be as well, meaning everyone will be restored to life. Dipper pulls the mayor out and the chair collapses, knocking Gideon's cage out of the sky. Everyone picks themselves up off the ground and are finally back to their true forms. Even Ford unfreezes from his golden statue. He tells the entire town that the way to defeat Bill is just as the natives did centuries ago, with the cipher wheel. If 10 people stand in a circle on a drawn version of the wheel, and the people within the circle embody the symbols on which they stand and hold hands, a force will be created that will once again imprison Bill. Meanwhile, Bill is still fighting the Shacktron when he realizes the legs of the machine aren't encapsulated within the force field, so he rips a leg off the Shackatron and smashes it into the machine, sending it flying back in the pyramid. Those of the townsfolk, which aren't represented by the symbols of the zodiac, have stepped aside to leave Dipper, Mabel, Seuss, Wendy, Gideon, Robbie, Pacifica, McGucket, Ford, and Stan, who are about to complete the ritual to rid their world of the one-eyed evil, when Ford corrects Stan's grammar, which results in the two brothers fighting again.
Between me and him, I'm not always the bad twin.
Between him and me.
Giving enough time for Bill to appear, looming over the team, now fully regenerated. He burns away the drawn wheel and captures Ford and Stan, binding them with ropes. And while the others begin to fight, with a click of his fingers, Bill transforms everyone but the Pines into tapestries with screaming faces. The Dream Demon then imprisons Dipper and Mabel and uses them as a bargaining chip to gain access into Ford's mind so he can finally get his equation. Bill is quickly interrupted by the twins, who tell Ford not to give in. This enrages Bill, and he squares up to the imprisoned twins. And before he can say anything, Mabel pulls out her spray can and sprays Bill right in the eye. This minor distraction manages to free the older twins, while Dipper uses his size-altering flashlight to make the prison so big they can just fit through the bars with ease.
I know that hurts because I've accidentally done it to myself multiple times!
After escaping, Dipper and Mabel taunt Bill to chase them down a long hallway. And as Bill goes to chase the twins, Ford and Stan try to make a break for it, but are quickly caught by Bill, who places them in a prison similar to the one he just had Mabel and Dipper in. He then transforms into a monstrous red and yellow form and chases the young twins, planning on turning them into corpses. He manages to capture the two and gives Ford one final ultimatum: let Bill into his mindscape or one of the twins will be killed. Ford reluctantly gives in to the demon's demands, but places a condition on the deal. From the moment they shake hands, Ford's family will be safe from harm, and Bill gladly accepts, transferring his essence into Ford, leaving behind a solid stone statue. Now in Ford's mindscape, all Bill can see is a white void with a singular wooden door. He opens it to reveal Stan? It turns out that while Bill was chasing Dipper and Mabel, he and Ford swapped clothes and pretended to be each other, in the hope Bill would fall for their plan. Back in reality, Ford takes out the memory gun to permanently erase Stan's memory, and along with it, Bill. Trapped in blue flames, Stan tells Bill that the game is over. He's lost, and his existence is about to be wiped forever. This sends Bill into a panic overdrive as he desperately tries to bargain, but soon realizes his powers have evaporated, slowly melting away into nothingness. Bill begins to babble all sorts of backwards messages while his form takes various shapes, colors, and sizes, as Stan steps up and punches a weakened Bill into non-existence and waits as his mind is consumed by the blue fire. Following Bill's defeat, everyone is freed from the tapestries. The henchmaniacs and all of Bill's evil architecture is sucked back into the nightmare realm, and with one great shockwave, everything is back to normal. But not for the Pines. For them, to destroy Bill Cipher forever, Ford had to erase his own brother, basically from existence. They find the husk of what was once Stan in the forest, where Mabel tries to make him remember her, but Ford insists that the Stan she knew is gone forever.
Oh, hey there, kiddo. What's your name?
Ford finally forgives his brother for their messy past, hugging him tightly for what seems like eternity. They head back to the now ruined Mystery Shack, where Mabel is in complete denial about Grunkle Stan's memory still. She grabs her summer memories journal and begins to recite memories to him. At first, things look hopeless, but when Stan tries to remember Waddles and Seuss, something seems to be striking a chord with Stan, so Ford tells Mabel to keep going. The family sits and laughs about old times after just saving the world. 3 days later, on Dipper and Mabel's 13th birthday, it's revealed that Stan has his memory back. Now with his brother forgiven and back by his side, Ford speaks to him privately about getting back to work. This time, Ford has found anomalies in the middle of the Arctic Ocean and asks his brother for his help investigating. Ford pulls out a picture he's always kept on him, a picture of the two of them as kids, rebuilding the Stan of War. Their dream to set sail together can now be a reality. and a reality it became. And that's where Gravity Falls and Ford's story ends. Ford Pines is one of a kind. Not even his twin brother can copy him, an interdimensional, intrepid explorer who tried to find happiness in his work, but only truly found it when his work brought him back to his family. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know down below what your favorite Ford moment is. And if you got any suggestions for another character recap or a deep dive, let me know. But for now, we're gonna see you all next time.